Thank you for having me. So for most of the people that don't know me, I'm Victoria. I'm an ex-NHS midwife in Plymouth. I worked in the same hospital and trained there, and I hadn't worked anywhere else. So for people that say you shouldn't say where you worked, it's on my LinkedIn CV anyway. And you can't lie on your CV, so you've got to tell the truth, eh?
Mm-hmm.
So I started, and it was very, very oppressive. I was 30 years old when I started training. So I'd had quite an extensive life working, from the age of 15, worked in River Island, and I worked in other places. And, you get to know the ins and outs of employment, etiquette and how to talk to each other, engage with people, conflict resolution, all those sorts of things. But it was funny, they never emphasised all of that in your training or every year in models. It's only when you really enter the NHS that they're really trying to indoctrinate you into that further system. So when I started as a student, that was when I started realizing how bad it was, and I couldn't work it out. I put it down to my divorce. I thought, I'm going through a family breakup. I've got 3 children. I've got a very young child. He was only 1 at the time, and I just thought, I'm having a really awful time from my divorce. Although that is quite a lot to deal with, I didn't identify that there were some issues within the actual midwifery profession. So the first red flag really was one of the lecturers was far too friendly. A male lecturer who was texting inappropriate things, saying inappropriate things, and I raised that internally. And it was just sort of thrown away as a side comment. And I actually provided a USB stick with all the documents on it. So that kind of was like, oh, there's something not right with this. And then when I actually started training, I realised I was seeing things that I didn't see when I was in labour and when I was giving birth at home. I just started seeing these malpractices. And as a group, we actually raised some concerns with the uni. Then we were told, you'll understand when you become a midwife why we do these things. And a bit like why you beat your children, and then say you'll understand when you have kids, you'll beat them. Yeah, okay. So I couldn't quite place what was happening. It took me a long time. For someone that's intelligent, has an emotional intelligence, I couldn't work this out. It took me a long, long time. So fast forward into, my career, I just started seeing these malpractices. The policies and employment law were there, but they weren't being adhered to. Health and safety wasn't being adhered to. Your union wasn't present. The HR were for the management, and it just spiraled. And then, when COVID hit, there was nothing left for me to live for in it. Really, it all made sense that it was it wasn't properly investigated. There wasn't the right evidences for the vaccines, and then once you've lost faith in that, it's not possible. If you have full integrity, it's not possible for you to remain another second in there. So here I am, really. So I don't know how much you want to elaborate, or whether you want to ask me questions. George, you just kind of lead the way.
No, I think the big word you brought up there, which is a common thing I see with a lot of people that are speaking out against these things. We, in the initial call we had, brought up Andrew Bridgen, for example, who was one of the premier voices trying to get the initial warning signs out around the vaccine rollout and stuff like that, and has stuck to that message. It has been vindicated seemingly at every turn. But again, integrity, the people that are speaking out on these things. I'm not sure whether you've seen that Michael Knowles from the Daily Wire recently had somebody on his show. I can't remember his name. I think it's Andy Wakefield, who was the guy who published the initial 1998 Lancet paper, which was horrendously misrepresented. Very, very eye-opening interview. I would strongly recommend anybody goes and watches it. But again, people having integrity, and that's typically the people that are willing to suffer this kind of persecution, whether it's at the hands of the police, whether it's the court system, from their own colleagues. As you've mentioned, the one thing I want to go here, you've mentioned, it says, a quote from you, I believe it was from the Mel Clark interview, the NHS is a dark entity. And, goes to show the indoctrination and stuff like that goes along with all of this stuff, and how deeply entrenched people can get into it. And then I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it was your initial experience of having a home birth that sort of sparked your want to go into this field to sort of give mothers who are about to give birth that kind of feeling that you had during that home birth. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, so I've got 4 sons. Mm-hmm. So I had one in Scotland when I was 19, so I was very young. So it's naturally you don't know what to expect. Then I had my second one in Portsmouth when I was married, or just before I got married. And that was a, lovely, quick birth, went into the hospital, had a baby and came home. And then my third birth, I moved to Devon, where my, at the time, husband's family was from, and we love it here. And when I found out I was pregnant, I don't know where it came from, because I didn't really understand the option of choice, but I just knew I wanted a home birth. And because my health, I've never been overweight. I mean, I was when I was first diabetic, because I wasn't titrating my insulin very well. I don't even know why I even said that, because if I'm overweight, I'm overweight. But, so I remember being pregnant and saying to my ex-husband, I really want a home birth. And he was like, oh my God, no, my friend's mum's child was disabled and everybody's fear was being projected onto me. But I just knew in my heart, no, this is what I want. This is what my baby wants. My baby chose to, because you choose your own birth. Women and baby choose their own birth, because it's a dual connection. And I laboured pretty much on my own without any pain relief. Now, I'm not going to lie, labour is painful, but when you get into a rhythm and you get into a connection with your mind, it's less painful. And I had this amazing midwife who is a colleague. And I have a lot of admiration for this midwife. She's the first person I ever met that is still a midwife today. She was just inspiring. She sat back. She let me do my own thing. She didn't get involved. She just let me birth. And she was incredible. And she created this space of, you know what you're doing, Vic, just go with it. And I remember when I was fully dilated, I remember sitting up off the ball and I'd finished all my contractions and I just went, I think I'm fully dilated. I didn't know that. She knew, though, because she'd seen it. So she said, I think you might well be. So I went upstairs to the bathroom, came back down, and then I just looked around and I thought, right, where am I going to birth? I hadn't planned where I was going to birth. I just birthed. And it was animal instinct. It was that mammal instinct. My body just did it. No one touched me. No one intervened with me. Oh my God, George, this experience, I can't even tell you. I wish you could bottle it up, because when I was pushing out my son, I can remember looking over at the door and I remember my mother-in-law looking at me, but then all of a sudden I was standing next to my mother-in-law looking down when I was pushing. It was so out of body. And then I really reflect on this now and I realised that birth is sacred, it's private, it's a ritual, a passage, whatever you want to call it. It's not what it says in the books, is everything that it says. So for me, when I birthed him out, I felt no pain. I mean, people say the head is the worst bit. Don't even remember feeling it, because I was so euphorically connected to my feminine space. And, I'm not a massive, power to the pussy type person, or I'm not that person. I'm not like that. I've got a lot of masculine energy as well as feminine, but I've also got 4 boys that keep me in a different space at times, and I've got a husband, and there's not actually a lot of females around me. So I wasn't ever that type of person, but if I could tell you that the power I had in that moment, I could have birthed an army, because I felt that incredible. And I remember afterwards saying, I'm never doing that again, but I'm doing that again. Because it was so amazing. And that was it. And I wanted to be a midwife. Something said, right, go and do that for women. George, how many women do you think I did that with in my career?
I think I'm led to believe it was either very low or 0, if my memory serves.
It was like 2.
There you go, 2.
But none in that situation. I've been to 2 home births, but they've never been like that.
Am I correct in saying it basically when you went and done them from the other side, you had it yourself, but when you experienced it from the other side, it was nothing like what you experienced?
I was just this medicine dispenser ticking boxes and trying to navigate not being sued or put in prison. That's the truth of where I'm at now. People will go, how dare you say that about my career? Okay, well, when you leave and you look back, you'll realise that isn't the role of the midwife. Why do they have to write the role of the midwife on paper? It's in your heart how to look after women. It's in your heart. They don't write you a book when you leave the hospital and say, there's your manual to be a parent. So why do you need a manual to tell you how to be a midwife? I appreciate you need a manual for policy with litigation, but actually to be the role of the midwife has to be, in a line. It's a bit like taking the policeman's oath. I think, what? The doctor's oath, you do no harm. So for me, it just never really made sense. And I suppose I was waiting for that real moment of, I'm a midwife and this is amazing and this is what it feels like, and it just never came. It just never came. And I think I wasn't a big drinker. I've never been a big drinker. I didn't really drink when I was younger. It took me a long time to ever really get drunk. I just wasn't really like that. I drank a lot. I was like cane in a bottle every time I came home from work, and and that's just not me. Like now, I can't remember the last time I had a glass of wine or an alcoholic drink. Maybe 2 weeks ago. So I do it when I want to do it, but it just didn't match what I remembered as a mother. But if you imagine, George, I go into that straight from uni, straight from school, straight to uni, into midwife, and you haven't had any children. Well, then you are going to think that's normal.